Welcome back. Professional Rookies Podcast. It's actually episode 4. Eventually we'll stop saying that. You know, I see people episode 2,311 or whatever. So eventually we'll stop it. But this is...
It's like Star Wars, episode 54.
4. I'm your host, Rene Angolia, along with my co-host, Detective Brian Ferreira. Freshly back from vacation in North Jersey. How's your vacation, buddy?
It was awesome. It was good to see the family. I got to see my little niece. I got to see my parents, my sisters.
How was the pizza pie?
Oh, the pizza was phenomenal. It spoils me because then you got to come down here and try and eat the pizza down here.
Your nickname is Beef, so it's fitting. And then, you got a little sick, right? You called me up. You were whining a little bit. I said, you got to play hurt. Yeah. You got to play hurt. So we had to move this recording a few days.
We did.
From where we normally do. But, all right, you sucked it up. So,
and if I sound like I'm out of The Sopranos, it's because I spent a little too much time up in North Jersey. So,
and if you start to cough, hit the cough button, you know?
Do we have a cough button?
Don't hit any buttons on this, on our...
I have a raspy voice today.
So, this is the last episode where we're going to do a little storytelling. I know last time I promised you some Buffalo Bills stories, and if you're interested in how I became an ESPN college football broadcaster while simultaneously being a police detective, I'm going to tell that story here. It's pretty interesting, but after this one, this is kind of the transition, a rebrand, if you will. We're not obviously changing the name, but we're going to go strictly into true crime in sports, as we like to call it, for our podcast, and that's kind of our niche. And next week, we're going to do the Aaron Hernandez case, which is, a lot of people know about it, but there's so many things that have gone on or went on in that case. So that's the one we're going to do first. We're trying to get the great Dan Wetzel come on as a special guest. Dan's a New York Times best-selling author. He was the executive producer of the Aaron Hernandez Netflix series, so we're real close, so hopefully we'll have Dan, but that's the case we're going to go next week out of the box, their Aaron Hernandez case, so it should be a good one.
Sure, yeah, it's I know it captured the attention of society for a while.
And I think people obviously know the story in general, but they don't know how many things went on in Aaron Hernandez's short life from the time, he was at Bristol Central High School through until he ultimately committed suicide in prison. So, that'll be a good one next week. But for this week, and I always tell you this, so I go back, I listen to my our episodes, as you should. And so I always screw something up, and it always drives me nuts. But I had mentioned so I'm going to correct it now. I mentioned the general manager for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think I said Terry Donahoe. It's Tom Donahoe.
Okay.
And...
I'm sure he's very offended because he's listened to it.
No. And then one of my teammates with the Buffalo Bills, when I was there, great linebacker, John Holasek, called him John Hornacek. Sorry, John, get the Holasek, Hornacek, basketball names mess up. But we'll start with the stories. And I got actually a good John Holasek story. Is
that the right name? That
is the right name.
Okay.
Not a good story, but I told you how I was about 205 pounds, and in 97, Buffalo, the offense we had under Dan Henning was a one-back set. There was no true fullback. They didn't have a true fullback on a team. Okay. But when they went goal line, they needed to put a fullback in there. They said, Angolia, you can do it. You're tough enough, So right. I had to take John on in goal line. He was a linebacker, and it was just, we met each other in the hole, and it was one of those collisions where I saw stars, but he came up to me because he saw stars too. So it was one of those really good collisions. John was probably 235 pounds. I was 205. I had a running start. He didn't. Right. And we just kind of met, and it was one of those collisions that, you asked about getting hit hard. Yeah. That was a hard one. The only good news was I hit hard as well. That's so, good. Kind of that stalemate. And the other thing about John was he was my roommate on the road for the preseason games. And for whatever freaking reason, the name on the hotel room was under me. And he used to order all these movies. And they would take it out of my paycheck, like $88, $112. And then John went on to sign like a $15 million contract.
Did he pay you back?
He was the heir apparent to Chris Spielman and had a couple really good years in Buffalo. He was hampered by knee injuries his entire life, his entire career. He played at the University of Illinois. He was a really good Big Ten linebacker. But he had a few good years in Buffalo, and he did pay me back. He ended up taking me out to dinner like 2 or 3 times and paid for it. So yeah,
It's like Seinfeld with the soup or whatever it was.
So that's my Holosack story. And then I said I had a Bruce Smith story. So Bruce Smith, when I was in Buffalo for 2 years, probably 2.5 years I was with Buffalo, said 2 things to me. Now, I'll preface this by saying Bruce really didn't talk to a lot of guys. He had his core friends.
I don't, and I hate to say this, but I don't know who that is.
Yeah, of course. He's one of the best defensive ends that ever played.
Okay.
So there you go. Brian's the novice there, but people listening will know who Bruce Smith is, especially if they're Buffalo Bills fans. So Bruce never really talked to anyone, but he said 2 things to me in my life. And the first thing was in 97, so December of 97, Ralph Wilson, the owner of the Buffalo Bills, he'd have a Christmas party, a holiday party.
Right.
And not just for the players, for everybody. For, administrative assistants, everybody. And he'd have it at like the Country Club of Buffalo. So you go there, and of course it's open bar, and it's food, and it's great. So everybody goes. So I'll never forget, I'm standing at the bar getting a drink, and he's next to me, standing there with another guy, and he turns to me and he says, "Hey, you're in the mafia, aren't you?" And I just look at him and I give him one of them kind of shit eating grins.
Right.
Get my drink and walk away. So I'm from Rochester, New York,
Yep.
which is about an hour from Buffalo. And Buffalo's very similar to Rochester as well. It's predominantly, there's a lot of Italians. Okay. Italian Americans. American Italians, however you want to say it. And so back in the day, everyone says mafia, but it's crime families. It's mob, right? Mob. So for whatever reason, he said that to me, and I just kind of smiled at him and walked away. I said, "Oh, let him think it, right?
Yeah.
What the hell?"
Yeah.
So that was the first thing he said to me. And then in practice one day, I was running scout team, and we were running through something, and I always went full speed.
Right.
I just did. I mean, that's just what you did. So I was
Got nothing to lose.
running the ball and go outside where he is at defensive end, and he must have tweaked his ankle or something, and he yells out at the top. We were in the indoor practice facility in Buffalo. He yells out at the top of his lungs, "Can someone slow that effing guy down?" So I was like, whatever. So I go back to the huddle, and everyone's like, "Dad, screw him. You're fine. Keep doing it." So those are the 2 things Bruce Smith
Did you put
said to me.
Did you put like a horse head in his locker or anything to send him a message?
No horse heads. But I'm telling you, he's not the only one that thought I was in the mob, because Thurman Thomas, who now I'm a running back, Thurman's the Hall of Fame running back.
I've heard that name before.
Thank you. I'm in meetings with him. So, and like I said, I was there 2.5 years. So Thurman used to make those comments to me too. So I told you how, like in 97, Elijah Pitts was my running back coach.
Right.
He ended up, it's horrible. He ended up getting stomach cancer and dying.
Yeah.
And then in 98, Marv Levy retired. Wade Phillips comes in and brings some new coaches in. So the running back coach in 98 was Bishop Harris. Now, Bishop loved me too, for the same reason I told you before. Like, I was like the teacher's pet. Bishop be like, "Rene, get up here. I want you to take, a step this way." And he wanted me to run the play a certain way, and I would do it to a T how he said it. And Thurman gets up there, and Thurman will drop step his left foot and do what Thurman wants to do, because he's a Hall of Fame running back. And Bishop's not going to tell him how to do it different. So it's funny. So they always razz me for being the teacher's pet. So we had, and most NFL teams have this, okay? So you watch all your practice. A lot of people don't know this, but you watch your practices over.
Okay.
Either that night or the next day in the morning. So not only do you watch your games over, you watch your practices, scrimmage, you watch everything over on tape. So if in practice, if you screwed up a play or you dropped a pass, they'd be like, "Oh, that's $50." And then you put you put $50 in a pot.
It's like the swear jar.
Yeah, and if you screwed up in a game, depending on how big the screw up was, could be $100, could be $200, right? And you put this money in a jar.
So that went for you too. Like even in the practice.
This is what the story's going to be. Well, it counts in practice too. So, and then at the end of the year, you go out as a unit. The running backs will go out. You'll take that money and you'll go out and have a good time when the season's over. So we're watching one of the practices over. So I talked about Buffalo being a little different. So everybody in Buffalo did scout team, which was awesome. So if we were playing the Miami Dolphins, like I would run scout team, but guess what? Thurman Thomas would step up and do scout team. Right. So when we did team drills, I got reps. Okay. So it's great. So we're in practice, and I drop a pass.
Okay.
And everyone's like, Thurman's like, $50. And I told you, Bishop Harris loved me. I was like, the teacher's pet. He goes, no, he's not paying. Because at the time I was on practice squad.
Right.
So that year, I think practice squad was making like $3,800 a week, as opposed to the $7,900 or $8,000 you would make as a
Say that
active
again.
player.
So $3,800 a week.
Correct. Again, but it's for 17 weeks.
Sure.
It's not all year, but it's still
Sure.
really good money.
Do I have to do the math?
So no, don't do the math. So Thurman's like, that $50. He dropped the pass, and Bishop's like, no, he doesn't have to pay. He's making practice squad money. And Thurman goes, F that. He's driving a Mercedes.
Is that the same Mercedes he drove to the academy? Yeah, that Mercedes.
Had this little convertible Mercedes, where I told you it was a lease,
right?
So it was, I pretended like I had a lot of money. I got a great deal on it through someone my dad knew in Rochester. Not mob related. Not mob related.
That's the first thing.
So that was the funny Thurman story, and there was other ones, but so those were the Buffalo Bills stories.
Did they use you
guys?
Well, here's what I see. I see them using you to collect the $50 from the other guys. Like, hey, $50, pay up.
Pay it up. And we did go out. We used to go to Canada all the time.
You don't want
because
Vinny.
Canada was so close.
Come get you.
So we don't usually get I wouldn't get it. Someone would get a limo. One of the people that make a lot of money and jump in the limo and leave the country. Everything that happens in Canada
stays in Canada. Yeah.
But so that's it. So now this episode, and I talked about it last week's pod, that football ended for me. NFL Europe. To me, it ended in a good way. I knew I wanted to get into law enforcement. We won the World Bowl. I got a ring. I got to score a touchdown. Come back in July. Talked about how I basically got hired in OPD in like 3 months. So come down here in the academy with you, and we get through the academy. It's great. I'm like, okay, I made the right choice. Like, how I just like, this is going to be cool. Because and I want to get your feelings on this as well. Like, when you first become a police officer and you're training, and you wanted to be a police officer growing up, which I did, which a lot of people our age. Yeah. I'm going to be 50. You just had a birthday.
I just turned 47.
Yeah. So a lot of people our age, when they were kids, they want to be cops.
Yeah.
It really is. And I'm not trying to minimize this, or it's like cops and robbers. Like, that's what you're learning, right?
Yeah. And the academy just pumps you up so much. You're like, I can't wait to get out there.
So we get through the academy and we get to the Orlando Police Department, and you go what's called field training, where first you go through orientation, and then field
that was like
training.
A month.
And you ride around with senior officers, and they grade you and stuff, and you have to make it out. But when we were in orientation, so we were done with the academy, we're in orientation, and people are like, what's orientation? That's where you learn the policies and procedures of that particular
the paperwork. We had to go shoot. We did a lot of stuff. Yep.
Correct. Because every agency is going to be a little different when you break the academy. So, but during that time is when the XFL popped up, if you remember.
Right.
So this is 2000.
That was Vince McMahon, wasn't it?
Yes, Vince McMahon, the XFL.
See,
and so I got called by the Los Angeles Express and said,
so they approached you.
Yeah, they called me and said, hey, you played NFL Europe, and would you be interested? I'm like, oh, man, here we go again. So now I'm like, well, now my juices are flowing, right? I'm like, yeah, I guess. So he goes, okay, we'll see if we draft you.
But what was the compensation package at that time? I mean, what was the season like? That was a big risk.
Yeah,
right?
I ultimately made the right decision. So it wasn't. It was probably comparable to NFL Europe. I think they made a little bit more. Like, we only made $1,000 a week in NFL Europe, but everything was paid for.
Sure.
That's why I alluded to last time. I said it's kind of like a paid vacation. Sure. So it was similar, I think. But I go to our coordinator, officer coordinator, that's kind of running the academy.
He just retired.
Yeah, Dave Haddock.
Yeah,
his name
just
is.
retired.
Well, not that he's going to listen to this podcast, but 30 years.
I know.
He's a cop's cop. I mean, Dave was a really good cop.
God,
and I tell people all the time, I don't care what business you're, especially police work, but it doesn't matter what business you're in. When you get there as a rookie, you're only as good as you're trained. Sure. You're only as good as you're taught. So if you're taught the job a shitty way, you don't know any better. You're going to be shitty.
Yeah.
If you're taught by bad people as a police officer and bad field training officers, you're going to be a crappy police officer. So,
I can't argue with you there.
No. And so really that's any job. I mean, if you're a carpenter, right? and you're learning the job, and you get taught by a lazy, crappy,
Yeah.
you know,